excited to get to talk with you.
Thank you.
Scott, would you want to open us up in prayer and then we can do some introductions?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Lord, thanks for this time to get together with Joseph and kind of hear his story and talk with him about this role and hear his experience. And I pray you give both us and Joseph kind of wisdom and guidance in terms of how we move forward from our discussion. I pray that this would be an encouraging discussion and that you would be glorified in all that we say and do. Just pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Well, Scott and I will introduce ourselves and then we'll get to ask you to talk a little bit about your story. So I'm Holly and I'm the HR partner for our US Tech department where this particular role sits. And I've been with Crew for 19 years and had several different roles, worked in risk management for quite a long time, and then moved to HR where I do interviews like this and as well as staff care and development once someone has joined with Crew. I'm married and I have a 13-year-old son who keeps us very busy, and he's very excited about wrapping up school. He's ready to be done. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Scott, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, Joseph, my name is Scott Paris. I lead what's called the Product Strategy and Support Team. It's basically a group of product managers, but I have just recently transitioned to that role and I was leading another team called the Solution Delivery Team, which is really Crew's version of a PMO, a project office. It has project managers and business analysts. And I've been with Crew for about 23 years, and most of that time I have been a business analyst. I've kind of just recently moved into kind of more product management of some of our kind of bigger enterprise product tools. So that's why I'm here as part of the interview. You'll actually be reporting to somebody else who I think is supposed to be on the call, but I don't know. But nonetheless, I have a lot of experience as a VA, and so I'm helping with the kind of hiring process here. I'm married. I have 3 kids, all boys, and I will echo what Holly has said, in that they are all ready to be done with school.
I
Yeah.
can imagine.
Yes. Yeah. Julianne is our team leader. She actually messaged me just a couple minutes ago. Scott, sorry, Scott, I meant to tell you. She had some conflicts going on this morning. She was going to try, if possible, she's going to try to come in for the second half of the interview. But if not, that'll be okay. You'll just get to connect with Scott and I, which will be great. So yeah, we would love to hear kind of a little bit about your story, your job background, as well as something that's really important to us is hearing your story of how you came to Christ and sharing about that. So yeah, we'd love to hear that.
Terrific. Thank you. Well, I'm Joseph Palacios. I do speak Spanish, by the way. It wasn't part of anything that was listed there, but I'm married. I have a daughter who is working in New York City right now, and doing a great job out there. Very proud of her. Got a couple of grandkids and a very recent one, so I had a chance to go up and do some babysitting for a couple of weeks. It was a great experience and so much fun. You guys aren't close to that yet, but when you get there, revel in it. It's an amazing piece of your life. Um, and uh, where was I? Oh, well, I've been in IT for a very long time, um, and my experience coming to Christ was in we were living in Mexico, and I had just come back from Sunday school, um, and I was recalling all of this when when Marilyn asked a similar question, and it just came all flooding back. It was an amazing experience, and I feel like I'm reliving it every time I retell it. But I was back from Sunday school, and uh, whenever we finished with Sunday school, we would go to a little store and we'd get a couple of pesos to go buy whatever we wanted. And I remember holding my mom's hand, and walking to the store, and at the at the session at the Sunday school session, they had shown us. I'm pretty sure they showed us a video. I'm not sure if I remember it as a video, actually as a film at that time, I suppose. Um, but of the resurrection of Christ, and there was the imagery that I had was um, of just floating out of his physical body, and I remember asking my mom about that, and and I wish I could remember her exact answer, but I remember just feeling so I wanted to understand that so deeply. Just that whole imagery, that whole idea, that level of sacrifice could
Hmm.
be uh, could be presented for all of us, and that was really a turning point. From there, it was it was a deeply philosophical thing that I was going through as a 10-year-old, I guess. But it was something that really stuck with me. And again, when Marilyn asked it was so exciting to rethink that. And then my mom has passed, and but it's one of the things that really connects me with her, and assures me that we'll be together again. So
Yeah,
good.
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that story. What do you feel like Christ is doing in your life right now?
Guiding me to get this job. Um, I have I've done a lot of different things in IT, and I've been very successful with it. But I I my current position is remote, and it's been like that pre-COVID for a couple of years, um, by a couple of years, and I had they're going to be eliminating the remote positions, and of course I had a little bit of panic because I make really good money over there, and it was a lot of fun working in that environment. I love the people that I work with, but I wasn't going to move to either Krakow, Poland, Tel Aviv, Israel, or Portland, Oregon, to keep the job. And when I was when I was looking around, I did all the standard job search things. And then I got this message from a recruiter, and I don't want to mispronounce her name, but it was something like Jenya, um, and it was like, oh, I had never thought about that. So of course I looked up Crew because I actually honestly did not recognize what Crew was about. I looked it up and recognized Campus Crusade for Christ. When I was going to Boston University, there's a very famous theological school there, and I had some friends that were were going there, and I I I I remember the I don't know the feeling of being reconnected again. But when I discovered that oh yeah, and they were in the campus for they were from South he was from South Korea, and he was in the campus for Crusade for Christ at Boston University. Um, so when I saw that Crew had started off like that, uh, it was exciting. I remembered his English name was John, but it was like Ivan or some, Ivan, something like that. But anyway, so I reconnected with all of that, and and I and I wanted to get a position that I could work with people that share a common worldview, which has not always been the case. And the fact that one of the very first things that the your HR department is doing is making sure that people align with the mission of the organization. I wish companies would do that more often, because what I ended up doing is I research every company I'm going to be applying to very deeply to see what they're about, and they'll often have a mission statement, but it never comes up in any discussion or interviews, and Crew is all about that, and that's something that really intrigued me. So, um, and I I think that working remotely has has been very good for me, but I miss working with people. And I think that's something that I've been led to reconnect with people again. And I think that that's the guidance I've been getting, and that's why I'm super excited about this. And I apologize for my occasional stammering. I'm just very excited about this position. I It was something that I years ago was a problem, and I'm working on it on a regular basis, but it's usually gone. But anyway, there's my story.
Yeah, that's great. Where would you like to see yourself grow both professionally and personally this next year?
I want to have some folks that I can hang out with and share my life stories, talk about my grandkids. I want to be able to do that with people that uh, I already know are appreciative of a certain lifestyle and a certain way of thinking and a certain way of looking at the world. I mean, the worldview is something that's been real important to me. I've worked internationally, and I've seen uh, what an organization like Crew can do, and I've worked directly with some. Um, so in just a year, I'd like to make some connections for sure. And then professionally, um, it it depends on what the organization needs. I'm glad to see that Scott's. I mean, both of you guys have been there for over 20 years. It's already mind-boggling. And to be able to be part of that, and I actually ran across a couple of other LinkedIn folks that that I had already been connected to that work at Crew, and these young people are just getting out of college, and their first job or first or second job is Crew, but they've already been there 5 years. I mean, that's almost their entire working career. They're with Crew, and that's not something young people do very often these days. There's a lot of movement, and the fact that you guys have each been there for almost 20 years, over 20 years, is really amazing. So uh, the opportunity for growth appears to be very viable. Something that the organization is looking to to grow you in ways professionally that will help you as well as the organization. Um, and and I That's very attractive to me. I had I've had my own consulting businesses. I worked for people before, um, and to have an organization. Years ago, I worked for PepsiCo, and they were very good about taking care of their people also. Um, but and I very much miss that. So professionally, I want to grow into the different areas that you're looking at. I think one of the things that really struck me in the job description was the definition of what business analyst does or is, and innovators, and using creative solutions to solve problems. I've worked in so many different industries and done so many different things. It's a very natural thing for me to consider creative solutions, and in an organization that puts that in the job description, and and has people that are working there 20 plus years, uh, that says a lot about the kind of group that I'll be working with, and the objectives of the management. It's not just to get the job done; it's to build something that's going to help people, and and all over the world. So it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Thanks for that. Is one last question for me. Uh, what is it like working with Joseph? What would your colleagues say about you?
Oh, yeah, I'm tenacious. I have a nickname sometimes, Tenacious Palacious. A mispronunciation of my last name uh, with the word tenacious in front of it, because I dig deep. Um, I want to find out what the real problems are, and and then find the solutions. That's one of the things that attracted me to the QA field. Um, that I it was that really struck a chord with me because I I've been. Oh, here's a good example. Um, I was working at a software development company. I wasn't running it yet, but I was working there. And at our Christmas party, somebody had spilled something on the floor. Um, and when I when I saw it, I, nobody was cleaning it up. So I just grabbed some paper towels and wiped it up because it needed to get done before someone slipped. About 3 months later, um, the founder of the company, a multi-billionaire, I was traveling on their private jet from I don't remember where. I think it was Denver to Miami, and I asked him, so why did you put me in charge of the company? He says, well, you remember the Christmas party? I saw you clean up the floor. And it was that's the kind of character that they wanted. They wanted somebody that wasn't going to wait to be told what to do, and when you see something that needs to get done, you take care of it. I mean, you got to if you need to get permission or ask questions, whatever you follow the right path, but get it done. And I like getting stuff done. I also um, I I extend that into I occasionally flip houses or used to. I haven't done it for a while. And when I go in, I I just I want to make it look so much better than it did. Um, and that might mean repainting a wall, it might mean changing the hinges on the cabinet doors, whatever it is. I want to improve it. I want to make it better. And that we'll get into the technical background, but it was process engineering is something that I've always loved, and continuous improvement. Um, my wife is very patient with me about that, um, but it's something that I really enjoy. So um, yeah, there it is.
That's awesome. All right, Scott, you want to jump into your questions?
Yeah, Joseph. Yeah, like I say, I was glad to hear you say you had a fair amount of experience in software development because that's primarily what we're doing here. Um, you know, you said you'd research Crew, and Crew has, our biggest thing is field ministry. We've got literally thousands of field missionaries who are going on college campuses and doing marriage conferences and this, that, and the other thing, just trying to engage people with the gospel. But here in Orlando, we have our world headquarters, and we focus on supporting the systems that support those missionaries. So, we have an HR system, we have a finance system, we have a donation processing system, we have CRMs to help with fund development and that field ministry that I was talking about. And so uh, we're constantly engaging with stakeholders to say, I need, something else built on top of what's currently available in this system or that system, or we're actually transitioning our US HR system from one tool to another. So we do migrations, upgrades, all the whole gamut of stuff. So my first question to you would be, if you could give me an example of a time when the stakeholder came to you and said, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z, how you went about gathering the requirements, how you went about kind of verifying them, what you used to document things, process flows. If you could just give an example, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I'll start with my favorite process flows. I've been using Elements, and it ties in. It's directly connected into Salesforce, um, and it's something that is just it's brilliant how it works. Um, so I've gone through all the certifications and had a chance to talk to the founder, and their push to AI with Salesforce in particular actually, it is to just keep growing the tool. Um, and one of the things that I've always uh, uh, tried to present in any of my past positions was a visualization of what's going on. And it's so important because it's something. And again, sometimes I'll actually start with some wireframe version of that. But I think that when you first present the picture, especially with I mean in today's environment, today's culture, um, people are flipping through their phones, whatever it is, or they're looking at something and it needs to be something that communicates effectively what it is you're trying to convey and simplifies what you're trying to convey. Um, that's something that's real important. The requirements gathering process. Um, in my experience, we've worked with uh, companies that come in with sometimes literally on the back of a napkin what they want to do. Um, so requirements gathering in those situations are sometimes uh, a little different than you would like. You'd like to get BRD binder and start from there, but uh, the the approach is, if it's not there, you got to make it. You got to find it. You got to dig for it. Um, the So it's going to be workshops, surveys. Um, I worked on a project with there were it was we're setting up virtual events for fundraising. It was for micro donations, and uh, I I identified who the different stakeholders were, and then who was it that they were relying on for their data. So I ended up talking to the whole chain down to the event planner themselves, so what they needed, and it wasn't. It turned out that their piece wasn't, uh, you know, uh, a big part of the software development, but it was something that needed to be known. As far as I was concerned, it needed to be known because if there was something there that the stakeholder maybe hadn't considered as important enough to document at that point, um, then something was going to be missed. Um, and this was a small organization, and they had a very limited budget. Um, but but I, I I needed to know that. I needed to know that I had done all the root cause analysis of everything they were talking about. Um, the requirements gathering, um, the the clarification of what all that was. There's uh, the documentation is something uh, I've I've done it in various ways. Uh, Within Jira, we'll put in some Confluence notes. Um, but when the client comes in, again, just to clarify, I'm talking about clients, the consultancy where I was doing my previous work. Um, um, Clients would come in sometimes, uh, and they needed everything in Excel. They needed to have all the data in Excel. In fact, even big clients, I had submitted some documentation on a project I worked on last year for a government contractor that was taking care of, I think it was Kansas child welfare system. They were changing over from like a deep dark Oracle 20-year-old system to to Salesforce also, um, and they kept everything in a spreadsheet. Uh, some of the data that they provided to us was in Lotus spreadsheets, if you know what that
Yeah.
is. And there was stuff that there was, printed data, and but it was an important piece of the puzzle to understand what it was that they were looking to accomplish. Um, and the going through that the discovery and then the recommunication back, the feedback to them. Okay, this is what it's looking like you're doing, and they walked us through it already. Um, now these 17 steps over here, um, is there anything in that that is still going to be needed when we do this? Because this will take care of 20 steps, and those 17 end up being superfluous. Uh, so constant communication back and forth. Um, Always got to stay on the same page. Always got to understand. For me, I always like to keep the big picture in mind, to understand what it is that they're if there's been any changes to the stakeholders' uh, desired pieces of the product. Um, so in all of that, it's going to be business process maps, flow charts, um, gap analysis, present it back to to the client, and see where we are in as far as our understanding of what it is that we're looking that they're looking to accomplish, that we're trying to get for them. So then I'll try to put together, actually, for the micro donation nonprofit, I put together a little um, uh, a an example of a solution for them. It was mostly just um, some big picture items, but I walked them through the entire process, um, and 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 took it from there. Um, a big part of all of that, of course, is going to be the risk management. At the very beginning of everything, will I usually do strengths and weak SWOT analysis, um, to see what their to understand their risks, especially at that point, because there's often it's not something that's included in any of the preliminary discussions. Um, so then take a look at the solution, work constantly back and forth with other BAs, with the production team, the developers, uh, management, stakeholders at every level that we have access to. And again, on some of these projects, I was not the senior BA, but so I did whatever needed. I made thousands of user stories in Jira, um, and in that whole process, setting up for the UAT, and um, and again, constant communication. I like to keep I like to provide a regular report. Uh, we typically we started off actually um, with 3 to 4 week sprints, um, but we ended up doing for all our clients, we were doing a 1 week sprint, um, and it sometimes the client wasn't there, but we as a team we benefited from that frequency. Um, what you guys are all agile, I suppose, for some, right?
Um, yeah, it depends on the project. You know, we used to be very waterfall heavy. Now we've been doing agile for quite a few of our tools, but it just kind of depends on what the project is. So you'll have to probably shift gears here and there, but there's a lot more agile than there was.
Okay, good. And what's a typical sprint for you?
We usually do 2 weeks for most of our sprint cycles. Yeah. So, okay. Well, yeah. And I appreciate, you sharing several examples there. And I heard at the very end, you've done a lot of user stories, because that's a big shift that's happened in my time here at Crew IT. Is we used to do business requirement documents, and now it's shifted more towards personas and user stories. Have you also worked with personas as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And I really like those. I have a lot of fun with those. I'm pretty. I I typically strictly adhere to, don't use John Smith as the example, because the persona is an avatar. It's not really an individual. Um, and I have a lot of fun with it. I did one with a dental office. Um, and we were putting together the personas for them, and there were in that case, in his office, in his in his office only, there were a couple thousand clients that I was dealing with, but he was part of an organization that had tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of of folks, and they were looking to, I think that one was, they were looking to develop a more successful marketing plan. Um, so digging into all of that, um, I, that's actually one of the areas that I first started developing my AI skills. Because to digest all of that information, um, I found that using AI for that was very fruitful, and it's something that I'm excited in doing. How much are you guys getting into that?
Um, we're using it a little bit, but yeah, we it would be great to have someone who's got more experience with AI. Yeah, um, I've used it here and there, but I admit I'm a novice there. I would love to hear more examples of how you incorporated AI into kind of software development.
Oh wow! Oh, well, this is fun. Okay, the for example, a recent project, uh, and I'm not actually, I understand you have Salesforce. I'm not sure if any of this particular position is looking for Salesforce experience. Is it?
Well, yes, yeah, Salesforce experience is a plus because we are using Salesforce as our field-facing CRM for all the missionaries who are interacting with students, and we are probably going to expand it in the future. So we'll be using Salesforce a lot.
Oh, good, good, good. Yeah. They just had a big announcement the other day. They're joining efforts with Workday, which is a piece of the ERP systems that are out there, and it's an HR piece, which is really very nice. But there's a lot of other pieces that like PeopleSoft are going to cover that this won't. But little by little, it moving over. So I had a client that wanted to automate um, a job search, which I was very happy to work with, uh, and it was collecting data from a freelancer site, um, getting it into Salesforce, and clicking a button to then provide a proposal based on the job description that was provided. And that connected uh, with the the different pieces of the Salesforce, um, the, uh, the, the contact, um, the, the, in this particular scenario, it was a case, the account, all of those pieces. And then what you could do is it would, it would track the emails that were being, uh, uh, the correspondence between anybody on the project. And then if you wanted to write the next email, you click a button. Um, or you can have it do it automatically um, after you've done some significant testing to make sure that it's doing exactly what you want. But the time savings is just crazy. It's literally like like about 12 to 1 efficiency in what we're able to achieve. Um, and that's just the beginning. I'm going to be taking my certification test, the Salesforce Agent Force certification in a couple of weeks. What's today? Yeah, in a couple of weeks. Um, and I actually um, I wish I had time more time to study it, but I I'm going to commit the end of next week to do that. But anyway, AI is a big deal, and it can come in to help in so many different ways. I was talking about the UPN and elements, and how that can tie in directly to the to, to all of the data in Salesforce, and to be able to do that already is crazy phenomenal, really exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. So, I'm sure as a BA, one of the we've got a couple of big challenges when we're kind of gathering requirements and then moving into the development phase of a project is that stakeholders often want a lot of stuff. They want us to build them a whole new world, and we say, well, we've only got so many people and so much time. This big ball of requirements you've given us, we got to kind of shrink it down a little bit. And so, could you talk about a time when kind of someone gave you more requirements than you could handle, at least in a kind of a phase one, and how you helped whittle that down to something that everyone could agree to implement.
Okay. Yeah, there was a financial services company we were working with, and the different stakeholder groups had essentially competing requirements, competing desires to accomplish. So at the time, I thought that having a workshop where they would physically, if they could, or virtually come in, and we just kind of hash it out in that meeting. Um, Talk about what was, why have each stakeholder talk about why it was important for them to have those particular requirements, and then the next stakeholder would talk about uh, their competing requirement, or the requirement that would somehow rub up against the other desire requirement, um, and come to an agreement where we're all on the same page. Uh, I put together a matrix, requirements matrix, of what A was looking for and what B was looking for, and find find the the spot deeper than the center that was going to be where they could come to some agreement, and then we as a team, as an entire workshop group, we'd then prioritize what was going to happen next. Um, and of course, everything is very deeply documented, so that there's no misunderstanding moving forward. Um, and then the and then it comes out, communicated to everybody, and it's recognized that everybody is now on board. Everybody is now on the same page, and we take it from there. And the guiding document to cover those issues, if any piece of that comes up again.
Okay, so out of that process, did you kind of come up with like a phase one or a minimum viable product? And then what happened with everything that wasn't in that set of work? Was there a phase two? How was the rest of the work or the rest of the requirements dealt with?
Yeah, they would be put on a nice to have Jira ticket,
Okay.
and it would be um, it, for the most part, we would try to put on some kind of timetable on it, but not very strict. But okay, it'll be after we complete this phase, and we've completed it completely. We've tested it and everything working okay. Uh, uh, then we'll revisit that particular issue and see if it still fits into the business requirements, because that's going to change once we is likely to change once we develop complete phase one, and they can play with it, and then they go, oh yeah, well I guess we don't really need that, or hey, or it looks like we really do need it, whatever it is. So it's all phased in, it's all laid out in as much as we can in that same workshop.
Okay. And so it kind of goes into essentially a backlog, it sounds like,
Yeah,
kind of within Jira. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. So that's an interesting question. So were you part of kind of helping manage that backlog, or was there a scrum master who dealt with those issues once they kind of went into the backlog?
It was all managed by the the scrum master and their team. So they'd get the senior developers and the senior BAs and such, and they do. I think they use the T-shirt method: small, medium, large,
Yep.
and extra large, um, and and that's how we'd end up getting that. And that was when um, I was still doing BA and QA. I was still doing QA and jumping into BA.
Okay. So that now gets into a question I'd like. It sounds like you were working as part of a team. Were you the only BA? Were there other BAs working on this project where we're a lot. I still want to talk about this one where you were doing the minimum viable product and the phase one. Were you the only BA? Were you part of a team of BAs? Explain the team that was working on that project.
Yeah, it was the senior BA, and I was working with another BA for that project. So there were three BAs, the senior one of them, and then we had and actually the other BA had been a developer before, um, and switched over to he had just switched over to being a BA, and the say who on on the BA team, it was just the three of us,
Okay.
and we but we were always in communication with development, and 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 stakeholders, and making sure that we're on the right track.
Okay. And so, so once you get done with kind of requirements slash user stories, did you then kind of shift into writing test cases? What happened then?
Yeah, actually, no, I do that early. The test cases, and even some I'll start to put together some UAT early on, um, and ar- around the time that I might be putting together any kind of prototype, um, any kind of wireframe, I'll try to what with what I with what it's supposed to look like. What are going to be some questions that need to be answered? Um, that it might be 6 months away, but I like to start to write that up front. And test cases, yeah, I got a few thousand of those also. Um, and but those actually, I think I I I do the I do the I do the UAT when I have the personas and user stories, um, and and because it just seems like a natural flow for me from there.
Okay. And so, again, you may have experienced this sometimes when we kind of get into the development process or even all the way into testing. Sometimes a stakeholder will go, "Oh, now that I see this in real life, it wasn't exactly what I was envisioning back, 3 months ago when we were doing requirements." And so they're saying, "Oh, we need to tweak this and change that." How do you go about managing the change management process?
Wait, again, hopefully, uh, 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 in the whole process, we've constantly been communicating back to the stakeholders anyway. So my first plan of attack is don't let that happen. Um, Let them know what's going on, so that at the end there's no surprises. Um, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes the business needs change, or there's a supply chain issue that comes up that wasn't there before, whatever it is. Um, and we just look at prioritizing what the technical debt's going to be, and then we'll work it from there. If it means another workshop, I haven't had to do that, but if it means developing a whole new um, uh, section of the BRD, whatever it is, then yeah, gotta do it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We rely very heavily on, the prioritization process to make sure that, yeah, that kind of stuff is handled well. So,
And
okay. So we've talked a bit about, the front end requirements gathering. We talked about you've interacted a lot with developers. You've done the kind of the QA and the UAT. Um, once the system has kind of launched, were you ever part of any kind of post-launch kind of support, feedback, retrospective type of activities?
yes, every project had a retrospective meeting, and uh, we would, as best we could, document whenever there, if we hadn't already documented where the bumps were. We're looking back at it now, and and seeing the, the production already out there. Um, we'll dig deep into whatever it is that we have to try to figure from there. Um, the Actually, for some of the projects, I like doing customer support. I like doing tech support. I like talking with the clients. Um, so after UAT, after everything signed off, in some cases we did have maintenance contracts in place, and I always raised my hand for those because I like those. The I and that actually, you know what, back uh, to one of the questions had earlier, why am I looking at um, changing jobs? Um, w- One of the big reasons is that I like to know what the project looks like after I've finished it. Um, in the scenario I'm in now, uh, have clients, have great rapport with the clients, but once we finish that project, if there is no maintenance contract or any other professional reason to stay in touch, I kind of lose them, and then I don't know what's going on with the project. And I like to know that I want to get some more feedback down the line. I want to know, okay, did this work out right? Um, and it's not something that unfortunately it's not something that our company was doing in a big way. I think they're just starting to recognize that, hey, there's potential sales that you can get by the constant communication and getting feedback down the line. Um, but that's something that I'm looking forward to. I want to work on a project, and I don't want it to just disappear from my workload. I want to know what's going on. I want to talk to the users, and or at least understand it. Now, um, I'll fit into the uh, the job format that you're looking for. So if that is strictly verboten, then I'll adhere to that. But it's something I'm looking forward to, and I'm hoping that it's part of what's here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because yeah, sometimes we'll go through the development process, we'll do pretty thorough QA and UAT, and something goes into production and it more or less works. But then we find out there's maybe a manual process in real life that interacts with the system that's maybe not optimized, and people start playing, oh, I don't really like the way the system's operating. And then you go and investigate and you go, oh, it's not really the system. It's, how you're interacting with it. So have you ever been a part of a process where you maybe had to look at an existing process and figure out some improvements, whether it's a manual process that's outside the system or within the system itself where you did some kind of process improvement?
Yeah, actually, a really fun project. I don't know if you've been to Whole Foods lately, but they have at the checkout, they have a palm reader, and our company worked on that project, and we were just doing the QA for it. And the way it works is there's a biometric image of your hand. It's connected to a code, and so it's not actually connected to your name. And then that code is known by the payment processor or whatever. Um, but in early testing before we got it, everything was great. But when we got it, we started testing the back of the hand, the other hand, the elbow, uh, different, because sometimes somebody has an amputee is not going to come in with an arm or whatever. Um, we need to be flexible. So it was fun recognizing that, hey, we could go crazy on this, um, and dig into what wasn't part of a a, a, I guess a rational scenario up front, or that okay, well, somebody's going to put their palm on it. They know what a palm is. They're going to put the face of their hand, but it's not always clear. And then there's some language issues also. There's different ways of referring to it, even within Spanish alone. There's different ways because of different countries using different ways to define it. So it was fun going back and discovering how much more we could be testing. Um, so that was fun.
Okay. Um, I think we're running out of time, but I do have a few more questions. I think the two big ones that I have are, I think a misconception that sometimes people have when they come into a Christian organization from like a non-Christian organization is like, oh, we all, get along super well, but there can be sometimes disagreements. Most of the folks who work for Cru have the same goal, mission, like you were talking about, but we often have very different ideas about how to achieve that. And so sometimes there can be friction, but we try to work it out in a Christ-like manner. Could you talk about at a time when you and maybe some other person on a project were kind of maybe butting heads or saw things a little differently and how you went about resolving that tension?
I I actually took some courses years ago on conflict resolution, um, and except for the except for the except for the brand of oat milk uh, we buy, I can't think of any deep conflicts I've had with anybody in years. I I I I use a I I remember years ago as before I was so wise, I had um, I made a concerted effort to to preempt those kinds of issues, um, and 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 I do that by over communicating, um, which turns out to be uh, um, the right level of communicating, not really over, um, but uh, the collaborative process that I like to use is always I I listen really well to people, I think, and I don't know if it comes from I can read really fast also, so I'm not sure if I'm processing things quickly or whatever it is, but I think that I think I'll read that into what might become a a friction uh, issue, um, and I'm trying to think. Okay, did I? Gosh, yeah, I think I just I I put myself into super listen mode when I feel that coming on, um, and 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 now I think it's pretty natural. I don't know, I don't even know when I turn it on, but I think I'm I've become well versed in finding ways to meet people in the middle or recognize where they're coming from, because sometimes they're not coming from really a conflict of that particular thing. Something, maybe they burnt their toast in the morning, whatever it is. You never know. Um, there was a great Chick-fil-A commercial years ago that you see people in the customers in the restaurant, and then you see a little speech bubble come up to next to one of them, like the mom and the little boy who's screaming says, her husband just passed away, and she's trying to keep her son um, from losing it completely. So and then another bubble would come up on an elderly gentleman or whatever. And um, I when I saw that, I remember thinking that wouldn't it be great if you could speech bubble people like that? Um, and I guess I guess I try to do that to some degree. I try to read where they're coming from, and not make any assumptions about why that particular issue is there, so that I can dig deeper into what why it's there, because that's sometimes that's more important.
Okay. I think two more questions. So another, I think, thing that's a tricky transition from secular kind of workplace into Christian is, I think some people think, oh, I can't make a mistake; it'll be held against me. Um, but I'm curious, yeah, do you recall a time when maybe you made a mistake on a project and things went a little sideways, and how you went about kind of correcting it or dealing with that situation?
Yeah, there's a project where we were collecting um, names and addresses, as part of a form, and I used the wrong field type on the zip code. Um, and I was sure I had gotten it right, but I didn't. Um, so of course, it was over a weekend that this problem was discovered, and we had it out to testing already. But I got a panicked message like, "Hey, these people in New York are disappearing. What's going on?" Because they start with a zero, and that doesn't work in the field that I picked. So I fessed up. I took care of it, and once once I realized what I had done, and it wasn't an immediate. Well, why is New York disappearing? Why it wasn't an immediate solution that I came up with, frankly. Um, but I dug into it and found it, and yeah, it was my fault. I did it,
Yeah.
and so
Mistakes.
actually that's something that I also I having worked at Disney and that's something that they very much emphasize is that hey, you know what? It, there's a story about a guy that had made a multi-million-dollar mistake, and he was called into Michael Eisner's office. He was the CEO of Disney, and and he went in expecting to be fired. And Michael's reply was that, well, why would I fire you? You just learned from a multi-million-dollar mistake, so go apply that. And that's it's something that's it's pretty cool. And you have to be able to get feedback. And I'm from that question, I'm assuming that the environment there is, hey, just be frank, be open about it. You're not going to get fired for putting in the wrong field type. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. And that's kind of the lesson is do you learn from it or not? That's what differentiates people who are successful in any organization, crew included, versus those who don't. So um, okay, last question. Where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years from now?
If it were just up to me, I think that Salesforce is on the right track. Um, in like I said, they just made this agreement with Workday, and Workday for the past 2 years, I've been wondering why has nobody bought Workday, fixed Workday, and put it into a bigger platform. So when I saw that, it was like, oh, hallelujah! Finally, they put it together, um, and and hopefully that's the beginning of other alliances, if not mergers. Um, and the pieces that are out there that Salesforce has um, that cover integrations, cover uh, unstructured data, the kind of tools that are out there I think are still going to be very powerful for some time, and they're going to help companies accomplish things more efficiently and more productively and all. So the uh, the path I'd like to take is to work in your Salesforce groups to be a part of that because I think it's very exciting to come from. I mean, what you did uh, in your migration to to PeopleSoft uh, was was that's crazy. That kind of project is nuts. But to be part of that, to have that arrow in your quiver, to have that experience, um, that's huge. That's fun, um, and those kinds of things. So again, I'm very curious about what pieces of PeopleSoft you all are using, because that's gonna kind of track for me what future projects might be, um, and that's fun. That's interesting. So in 3-ish years, um, I I want to be uh, more 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 savvy in different areas, um, uh, and not necessarily specifically for Salesforce, but the architect role in Salesforce. If you're familiar with that, I like that. That is a very big picture thing, and it's a design thing, and it's something that takes a lot of different skill sets, and puts them together into something that can have a huge impact. Um, and and that's a big part of who I am. Also, I want to have an impact. I want to make a difference, and and I think I can do that.
All right, that's my question. So this now's the time of the interview where you can ask any questions that you have.
All right. Thank you. So what are some uh, innovative projects that you are super excited about?
Um, so we bought Salesforce many years ago, and one division of our ministry, Family Life, has been using it for many years. But we've just recently kind of started using it as what I call the field facing CRM. It's a way for our staff, our internal staff, to kind of track all their interactions with students and people they're ministering to. And so that's probably the most exciting thing, because most of my experience before that was on kind of behind the scenes products like our Siebel donation processing system and our PeopleSoft HR finance system. And so we've been in a kind of a 2-year development cycle with that. So I think it's getting pretty close to what we kind of call mature, but it's still exciting because that's where you get to see, you know, the reports that come out of we call it connections.
Okay.
The reports that come out of connections are like, here's how many lives have been changed, for attorney. Here's how many people are sharing the gospel. Here's how. So that's cool. I'm super glad that we're processing donations very efficiently, and I'm super glad that we're caring for our staff. But it's just cool to see something that's like, you see the eternal difference you're making kind of really close up.
Very cool. Yeah, no, that is exciting. To 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 to, to, to think that something you're working on is affecting so many people in that way. Um, Man, that's really uplifting. That is that's the only word is cool. I mean, it really is cool. Um, and what is the main your main personal reason, if I can ask, for being there for 20 odd years?
Um, yeah, so I have an engineering degree, and I spent 5 years in the secular workforce as a process engineer. And then God kind of worked in my life, and I actually wound up kind of quitting that job and going and doing field mission work overseas for a partnership between my church and Cru. And then it was so life changing that I joined Cru and started doing field mission work in Nashville. But I'm not a great evangelist or discipler, and so I got a opportunity to do an internship here at our headquarters in Orlando about 20 years ago, and it was just a perfect kind of fit of my skill set and kind of my personality and what I thought was valuable, which is kind of changing lives for eternity. And it kind of all came together. And during that kind of time in the mid 2000s where I came here to Orlando and started working at Nike.
Okay. And how has it changed you in 20 years?
Uh, yeah, it's funny. I tell people I'm kind of a better version of myself. I was a very quiet, part of the reason I wasn't very good at evangelism and discipleship was I'm an introverted person. So it was always kind of, I would do the evangelism and discipleship, but it was kind of very draining. And so I've kind of learned how God created me. And I go, oh, if I do my job here at headquarters well, there's a bunch of people who are really good at evangelism and discipleship, and they have to spend 20% of their day doing reimbursements or, checking their donations. And if I can save them 5 hours a week doing that administrative stuff so they can spend more time out on the field doing what they're good at, it's a win-win. Like, I'm doing my job well, they're doing their job well, and the gospel is kind of increasing in its coverage around the world.
Okay. Very good. I like that. Okay. Cool. Um, yeah, like I said, I've studied the organization pretty deeply, and I, I most of my questions were just about what's it like to be there, and you've clarified that very well. I appreciate it. So that's what I got.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for interviewing with us. It was really great to get to know you. And so our goal is within the next week to determine who would move forward to the next step in the process, which would be interviewing with Scott would also be there, as well as his director, and my HR director would also be a part of that interview. So actually, I say Scott would be there. Potentially, it would be the new team leader, Julianne, instead of Scott, now that I say that. So but yeah, my goal is within the next week to get back in touch with you and let you know where we would be going with that process. And you're free to reach out to us if you have any questions or that we can answer. Please feel free to email us.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Holly.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Thanks.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Scott.
Joseph.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.